Hello, and as always, I thank you for coming to my channel and my talk show, Tell It Like It Is. I'm your host, Morris Mann, and my co-host,
Joseph Spencer.
and today we're going to tackle a very sensitive topic that no one talks about and no one wants to talk about. And that's really the purpose of this particular TV show or talk show, is to talk about issues that is very important to our young folks, because it's important for us to pass down our knowledge to our young folks, because that's how we learn. I learned from my parents, Joe learned from his parents, so on and so forth. So there's some people out there, young folks, that don't have that guidance as far as parents or older people to kind of share information with them. So that's what we're going to do today. And today is going to be a very unique topic. And the name of this topic is Young Black Men and Women, Stop Giving Your Kids These Stupid Made-Up Names. And I'm going to tell you why that's a problem, because most of us think it's cute. You know, it's cute that I name my child this name that I can't even pronounce. And most of us don't realize, or should I say some people don't realize, that they're not thinking about the long-term effects of these names. They think about the short-term effect, that it's cute, my baby's small and she's like a little toy. But fast forward 20 years later, and it's time for your son or daughter to get a good job, not frying chicken in the neighborhood or whatever. It's going to be very difficult for them to land a pretty good job with this name on the application that the prospective employer can't even pronounce. You know, realistically, before an employer hires you, he sees you on paper. Now, who you think are they going to hire or bring in first? Is it going to be Marcus, or is it going to be Jabari? You know, that's something that most of us, or should I say young folks, don't think about, because it's up to the older people to enlighten our younger people and put them on a path, you know, because they don't know what they don't know.
Excuse me.
And it's up to us, older people, to kind of, you know, explain to them why this is not a good idea. And before I finish or go off on my rant, I'm going to turn it over to Joe and get his insight on what he thinks about that. What do you think, Joe?
There's a word called fad. And back in the 60s, when I was 13 years old, I grew a natural. This will hook up with that name change thing.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the 60s, it wasn't having a natural for me. Wasn't an identity thing, because I know who I am. I can look in the mirror and see I'm a black man.
But you follow the trend.
Well, when I first grew a natural, I was the only one in the neighborhood with the natural.
Okay.
You know, I grew a natural when I was 13. 13 and 61, 1961, and brothers and sisters actually made fun of me because of my natural. I even had a teacher call my mother and said, if you can't afford to get his hair cut, I'll send you a couple of dollars to get his hair cut. Understand what I'm saying? And as the years passed, the natural became a fad.
Yeah.
You know, with the natural came these names. Mahuka mahaka unanaka, poo 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 poo, and papa papa papa. When I got in school, when I got away from 47th Street and got into school, I began to associate with white people, Europeans. And I would go into their homes, and they would tell the older people, "Grandma, why don't you speak English?" You know, she was speaking her native tongue, and I'm going, "Well, hey, just want to speak two different languages. What's the problem here?" "Oh, Grandma, I can't understand you." And then I went to other European homes, and their ethnicity they were trying to change to fit in with the American culture. You know, they might not seem like a million years ago in the United States, where foreigners, they went through the same thing as black people did, but when they opened their mouth, they knew that they were foreigners and not white Americans.
Yeah. And that's the key too, what
Right.
you said, fitting in.
Right.
And some of us can look at that term as this or that. And what I mean by that is, some of us can say, you're selling out because you're following the trends of what white people set up. Now, other people like, I'm being smart because I want a decent paying job and be able to take care of my kids. So whatever I need to do, I'm going to do. You know, so the choice is yours. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a sense of black ethnicity as far as I come from Africa or my ancestors did. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing. You are not African. We've been detached from Africa for over 400 years. And if you go over to Africa and claim to be African, they will laugh at you, okay? We
You're not
are the
African.
only group of people in this country, or probably in the world, that don't have our own identity. And it's time for us to carve out our own identity. There's nothing wrong with a sense, again, of African pride. You know, if you want to name your kids these names, maybe why not the middle name? And then have a standard professional name, because at some point in time, your daughter or son is going to have to go out there and land a job. And you're going to be sitting here wondering why my son is 25, 30 years old, still living at home because he's not working and making babies in my house. And one of the reasons is you have not equipped him with the necessary tools to be successful. And that's what we have to do as parents, is to put our kids on a path so they can be able to be successful in life, as opposed to you giving them things that are going to be counterproductive. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to kind of make it short because I'm going to turn it back over to Joe. And a lot of people are going to get upset with this, but again, we're doing this out of love to educate our young folks. It's not about what we think and we sitting on a pedestal here. No. But here's the thing. I truly believe in my heart that Trayvon Martin, and we all know who he is or was. Unfortunately, he was murdered by this insane guy who thought he was a cop trying to patrol the neighborhood, bothering this young man when he wasn't bothering anybody.
He was delusional and racist.
Exactly. You know, I believe in my heart that Trayvon Little Martin would still be alive today if some people didn't fail him. First of all, he was given a made-up, stupid name. Now, some people gonna get angry with me about what's wrong with his name. Like I said earlier, we giving our kids these names we can't even pronounce. We're making them up, and when it comes to trying to land a good job, it's gonna be difficult. Second of all, and I don't agree with this, but it is what it is. There are certain types of gear, clothing, apparel that has a negative attachment to it. Now, I don't have a son. I have a daughter. If I had a son, he would not be walking around in a hoodie. He would not be wearing pants, blue jeans, showing the crack of his ass. He wouldn't do that because he would be lumped in with all these other guys that they assume are gangbangers and troublemakers, and most of them not. But the reality is, we have these negative associations with this certain type of wear. Now, I ask you as a parent, what's more important to you? Keeping your son and daughter safe so they won't get shot, or following the trends and making up dumb names and wearing stuff that has a negative association with it? What's more important to you? That one or the second one? You know? What do you think, Joe?
The whole world have assimilation. The average American black person don't have to assimilate because the average American person, black American, is more American than the average white person you run into, because a lot of them came over here in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and the fashion thing is for the fashion industry. These names are for the media, movies, magazines, and music. These names you don't make any money off of. When you take something and take it out of the contents of being the same. There are white people and there are black people in the United States, even though they're different colors, they are the same. When you go to China, people in China is Chinese. United States is the only place you can go where you can be brown, black, or white and be American.
It's a melting pot.
It's a melting pot.
Yeah.
When you take an alias name out of the contents of the language, you alienate yourself. You want to be accepted, but you're hey, there's going to become a time in this country, I don't care what color you are, white, black, brown, green, or what. If you're an American, you're American, and you should have an American name. There's going to be certain stuff, well, he doesn't have an American name. That's not an American name.
Yeah.
Period. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with identity, pride. You know,
It's a trend.
it's a trend.
And it'd be different if it was based on that, but we got these young folks, you know, I'm giving my son or the daughter an African name. You've never been to Africa, most likely never go to Africa, because if you did, you'll find out that you're not African anymore.
You're not African.
I mean, look at me, look at my complexion. There's a whole bunch of stuff running through my veins, you know, so I can't just say I'm 100% African, because I'm not anymore. And again, we have to get off this dumb merry-go-round of these stupid trends, and we think it's cute. But most of us don't think about the long-term effects. And that's why it's up to older people to say, hey, I understand what you're trying to do, but I'm gonna tell you why this is not a good idea. And once we explain that to you, hopefully you understand and you get it. Because again, my main objective as far as raising my daughter is to make sure she has the necessary tools to be successful, first and foremost. All that trendy stuff and the certain clothing and all that other stuff, that's secondary to me. I'm not gonna send my daughter out there looking like a slut, dressing with her clothes all tight, because when you're a kid, it's all about clicks. I want to fit in with the in crowd. And I can understand that because that's the life of a child. And they know no better and no different. But it's up to us as adults to say, hey, let me sit you down and explain to you why this is not a good idea at the moment and definitely in the long run.
If you have a certain amount of people to identify with a name, you will be blackballed.
Yeah.
You rather give up the whole world, opportunities of what the world have to offer for a name.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of our brothers say that the white man gave us these names. That's true, but that's 400 years ago.
Right.
Accept these names. Your grandfather was Sam Adams, and his father before him said that's your name.
Because again, if these people feel that strongly about it, why not the middle name? There has to be kind of a happy medium somewhere because, again, this militant nonsense or just ignorance of I'm going to name my kids these names that I can't even pronounce, it's definitely not a good idea. And at this point, what I want to do is this. Well, I'm going to let you finish.
When you change your name, even though these are Caucasians' names, you change your bloodline. You change your, like my grandfather's name was Sam G. George. When somebody gave me my grandfather's name, that carried on that bloodline, and I could trace it back. Nobody's going to be able to trace back Kamunga Balunga Mamanga.
No, because again, we've been detached from Africa for over 400 years. I am not trying to suppress or knock the idea of, we are blacks and descended from Africa, and we're trying to forget about that. I'm not. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud to be a black man. But I'm not African. We've been detached for 400 years.
I've been to Africa, and when I went to Africa, I was around our brothers and sisters from the old country, and as I sat there and ate African food and looked at the beautiful black African women, I realized that I am an American.
Yeah. Okay, what I did today, it was kind of interesting. I went on the internet, and I went on various social networks, Facebook to name a few. And I actually pulled out some real names of young black people. And I'm gonna give a copy of this to Joe. And also I'm gonna put it up on the monitor. Half of these names I can't even pronounce, so I won't even try to pronounce them. I'm just gonna do this. Number one, look at number one and you see the spelling of it. Number two, you see the spelling of that one. Number three, spelling of that one. Number four is probably the only one that I can pronounce at this point is Zandra, which I guess is a clever takeoff of Sandra. Then number five, Diwansa, I think.
Diwansa.
Okay, now I'm going to the man's name.
Diwansa.
Number one, Molando, which I guess is a clever takeoff of Orlando. Number two, Kashan, which actually I guess is a unisex name. Number five, which is my favorite, Javon. Sound like a perfume.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Javon.
Number four, Shiron, which is a man's name. This was a guy, goes by this name.
Shiron.
And number five, which is Daniel, I guess, which is a takeoff or a different spelling of Daniel. This is stupid. Again, we got to think about the long term. And most of us who do this don't think about the long term. Because most of the people that give their kids these names are like 18, 19, or 17 years old themselves. So they haven't actually went out there and got their feet wet, so to speak, when it comes to a good professional job. So they don't know any better. So it's up to us older people to say, hey, this is why this is not a good idea. This whole African name, Jabari, Trayvon thing, all these made up names, it's not going to help your kids in the long run. It's going to actually more or less keep them from moving forward and having a productive life. Now some of us, You know, some might get through, but again, you want to equip your kids with the most, you know, progressive tools to be successful. You know, successful people breed successful people.
That's
Successful people hang around successful
Successful people.
people. Losers hang around losers, okay? You don't want your kids to be a loser, but you're helping that effort by these dumb names. You know, you can get mad at me all you want. I love you. That's why we're doing this particular topic, because if we can just reach one young folks, a person that are about to have a child, and say, you know what, I never thought about that. Thanks for sharing this information, because I want my son or daughter to have the best and the opportunities to have the best. You know, I hope that that's everybody's first objective when it comes to being a parent, is to be able to provide and help your son or daughter when they get older to move forward, instead of being stagnated. They 25 years old, still at home, and you can't figure out why they can't find a job, and they're breeding in your house. You know, I mean, what do you think, Joe?
Well,
Am I too hard on everybody?
No, you're not too hard on it.
Okay.
Well, the truth is usually hard.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it's your truths and nobody else's truths. Well, kids, they look at me and they call me pops. You know, and I try to explain. I ask them. I say, when you go out into a job interview and you see a man my age and you sit down, do you say yes, sir, or do you say pops? They had no answer for me.
Yeah.
This link up with the name thing too. I've talked to kids and, well, this is our generation. No, this is not your generation. It's a mix.
You don't come into this world, if I can interject, calling shots.
Calling the
it
shots.
Don't work that
it don't
way.
work like that.
It does. You pay your dues. I
Right.
mean, I first started off in the work world bagging grocery, you know, and I worked my way up. Before I left that organization, I was assistant manager. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you start at the bottom and you work your way up to the top. When you're young, you have to pay your dues. Older people look at you and say, you haven't even started yet. You're about to get started, and it's not going to be easy for you. Okay.
Yeah.
But it will get easier as you work your way up the ladder.
When I left home again, I went through that mod and that hippie era, right? All my contemporaries, we thought that was our generation. By the time I was 25, I began to realize all that crap had been set up for us to buy from people 15, 20 years before all of this became very popular. Like most of the kids out now, they think hip hop started yesterday and it's 30-something years old.
Because there's some people that are sitting here listening to this today, don't know their daddy. Their mama's struggling because grandmama's still taking care of her, and they don't have an outlet to really learn these things and valuable lessons because there's no one in the household, unfortunately, to teach them.
Nobody.
So that's why, you know, we decided to do this show, because there's some people that need this knowledge. You know, knowledge is king. When you get knowledge, you know, that's just is everything. Because everything after that, you can acquire it once you have acquired your knowledge.
Yeah. And just stand back to names again. If you can't get firsthand information, there are people who get information 5, 10, 15 years ahead of the whole populace.
That's a very good point. I mean,
Yeah,
again, this is the whole purpose of this particular conversation, is to ward off some of the things that these kids will go through, and they don't necessarily have to go through.
Right.
Here's a commercial that I seen about 2 years ago, and it was funny. It was for a cell phone commercial. This guy walking down the street, and his cell phone rings, and when he picks it up, it's himself from the future. And he's telling himself from the future, avoid these investments, avoid this, and also, by the way, when you run into a woman by the name of Rhonda, run, you know. It was hilarious. And it's like, we wish we all had that type of insight, that people would tell us about things that's going to happen to in our lives 10 years down the line, and they tell us and we're prepared for it because we know it's coming.
Right.
Because ain't nothing worse than not knowing something that's going to happen, and then it happens, you're not prepared.
Right.
You know, and that's what we're trying to do with this particular show and all our shows that we do, the episodes, is to prepare our young folks, whether you're black or white, it doesn't make a difference, about, you know, preparing them for these things that they're going to experience in their life and how to deal with it, because most of us don't know what we don't know, and if you don't tell us, we don't know.
Right. Most people, they mimic each other. I've ran into white, black kids You know, like when I was younger, you were trying to be white because you were a book reader. You know.
Yeah, that's sad. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
all
sad.
you're trying to do is better yourself. It ain't nothing about you trying to be a white guy when you're black.
Right.
It's about being able to prepare to be in the game that you're in called life,
Right.
and being able to move forward instead of being held back. Because it hurts my heart to see anybody not being able to give them the opportunity to really move forward in life.
I also noticed that most of the young women named Tawanda, they all are alike. They,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a,
you know,
it's a
and I
stereotype, but it's an accurate one. You know.
I asked them, if you go on a job interview and the person interviewing you asks you a question, you go, well,
Yeah. Well, people
you know,
like that would
what
be,
do you mean? You know, I don't understand how you can get a job like that.
you can fried chicken, and there's nothing wrong with fried chicken. I'm not trying to say that fried chicken is a bad thing, but at some point in your life, you want to keep moving up forward. You know, you want to look up and say, I'm a 40-year-old man now, and I have a pretty good, legitimate, good paying job that takes care of me and allow me to take care of my children. As opposed to you're 40 and you're somewhere working a minimum wage job that a 17-year-old should have, and you're stuck. You're still in your parents' house while you have kids. You know, and that's all. It all stems from not having the information that you need to move forward. And again, that's one of the reasons why we decided to give birth to this show, to enlighten our young folks about things that they are definitely going to experience. Because at some point in time, your son or daughter is going to have to go out there and get a job. And you want to be able, again, to equip them with the best information and tools to succeed in doing that. That's what we're trying to do here, is to try to help you and shed some light on. It's not a good idea to come up with these made up names.
Fads. These are
you
fad
know,
names.
Yeah, fad names. And by the time your son or daughter 20 years old, they can't find work. Or, they look at Javon on paper and put him in the garbage can, or put him up under the pile. And then they call James instead of Jabari or Shavon, you know?
I also noticed that when the Afrocentric things started picking up and naturals became popular, because when naturals weren't popular, you would label as something. Then they became popular. I stopped wearing naturals when the gang bangers started wearing naturals. Brother, what's up?
Yeah,
I
and you
cut
don't want
my
to get
hair.
caught up in that pile.
No.
And that's what some of
I
our
cut
young
my hair.
folks do. They're not trying to deliberately be looked upon as a stereotype and have the police following them and security when you go into a store. But half of them don't know any better as to say, well, that's not a good idea to
Being
buy
black
this and
security
wear this
is-
hood.
Being black and being black, the police and security is gonna follow you anyway.
Yeah, the bottom line is trying to keep your kids and loved ones safe, okay? That should be the most important thing to you, as opposed to, I should be able to wear these boots. I should be able to wear my pants hanging and my cracks showing. Yeah, actually you should be, but you can't. So, it's the choice is yours, Are you going to be smart enough to say, hey, I'm not going to be like everybody else because everybody else is struggling here. I'm going to do something totally different because that ain't working for everybody. So I'm sure it ain't going to work for me neither. So I need to do something different. I'm going to swim upstream when everybody's swimming downstream.
Right.
That's how we have to think. That's how we become successful, by doing something that's a little different and not stereotypic, because when I was a kid, everybody smoked. I knew back then, because of my great parents told me that it's not good for your health. It's kind of expensive, it ain't good, so that might not be something you want to do. Therefore, I never smoked a cigarette in my life, other than when I did a movie role, and my character, it required me to be, I had to shave my head and I had to smoke a cigarette for about 5 minutes. Other than that, no. But to each his own. If that's what you want to do, you're able to do that. That's your thing. But on that note, because again, I see my production assistants giving me the sign, and we did kind of go over our time because this is a very important topic, and we might do number 2 or part 2 of this. So on that note, as always, I thank you guys for coming to my channel. Tell it like it is. I'm your host again, Morris Mann, and my host and my co-host.
Joseph Spencer.
And until next time, keep thinking.
Later, y'all.